We are confronted with so many crises simultaneously. What does it need to master the future? I think to have a platform where all stakeholders of global society are engaged.
Master the future. Stakeholders. Man, that stuff sounds nice. I don't know what Marc's problem is. Joining me now, Marc Morano, author of the book, The Great Reset. Marc, I don't know what your problem is. Why don't you want to be a stakeholder and master the future? What's wrong with these things? It sounds so nice.
Well, the problem is we're not on the inside team. The stakeholder, as defined by the World Economic Forum, is going to be a corporate CEO, a billionaire, a woke activist, someone from academia or elite corporate media. Unless you're one of those, you're not going to fare too well as they embrace this frightening future they have in store for us. And they're very clear about what that future is. You'll own nothing, you'll be happy, you won't have any privacy, life will never be better, meat will be a rare treat, you'll be, US will no longer be a superpower, and we will, anything you want will be ordered up by drone. So if you want to get a blender for your kitchen, you can just hit a little app and magically in this utopian socialist future, a little drone will come deliver it. You'll use it for a half hour and then it'll come pick it up. They actually believe they can have this efficient bureaucratic future where your every want is met and you will own nothing.
Marc, I remember Henry Kissinger, I never know how to say his name. I went to community college, but I do remember hearing him say one time, he was talking about propaganda and sayings like support the troops. He was talking about that one specifically. He said it doesn't mean anything, but you can get everybody to repeat it and support it, and it's virtually meaningless. It can mean whatever the sayer of it says, whatever they want. I can't help when I hear things like master the future, I can't help but think about that support the troops thing. What does it actually mean? What are they talking about?
Well, they actually believe they are central planners and they are ideologues. They actually believe that they can micromanage every aspect of our lives. And this is happening. People say, well, with the Great Reset, some conspiracy theory. No, we're living in it now. Intentionally collapsing of our energy, intentionally collapsing of our agriculture, intentionally collapsing of our transportation. Just as an example of how you master the future, you can have one meta-analysis study done on gas stoves by an activist group that has the former UN climate envoy Todd Stern on it, who helped the architect of the UN Paris Agreement, and a group who called Carbon-Free Buildings wants to get rid of all the CO2 in buildings. They do a study, and the head of the Consumer Protection Safety Division of the United States government starts openly talking about banning gas stoves in new homes. That's how things are done. There's no democracy. So when they say master the future, they mean master eliminating us. And you and I, Jesse, that's what he really means when he says it. Because ultimately, we're not going to have a say by any democracy in any consequential decision in our lives. Just look at what's happening now. Ban on gas-powered cars. We didn't vote for it. All done through the bureaucracy. Ban on high-yield agriculture, done through these vague net zero things that are then court-ordered and done by politicians and the bureaucracy. A ban on meat eating, which is going after methane and animal agriculture. It's all done in a way where we have no direct vote, there's no input of democracy, there's no hearings, there's no town halls. We just wake up every day and there's some new ban that's happened without our consent or knowledge.
Marc, some of this stuff, well, you know what? Brian Stelter's there. I'm going to play this, and I'm going to ask you a question. Here's Brian.
Okay. I'll tell you a brief, funny, maybe not funny story. So I leave CNN, and there's a crazy website that posts an article saying I was arrested by military police. And then I have a fact-checking email, and I don't know whether to reply to the fact-checker and bother with this, right? Same website a month later says I've been executed at Guantanamo Bay. So the fact-checker emails me again. And I say, well, do you want to take my pulse? How do I disprove that I wasn't executed? And so to me, that is amusing and ridiculous.
Marc, it feels like some of this stuff is openly mocking us to our faces. Brian Stelter is a gigantic goober and always has been, really a feature that's been mocked pretty universally out there. Yet they bring him in to speak as some media expert. I feel like a lot of this is purposely rubbing it in the peasants' faces.
It really is. They get the most buffoonish, cartoonish individuals, rub them in our face as though we're supposed to be impressed. He has obviously straw man arguments. You know, I did a whole book on the Great Reset, and I assure you, there was nothing in it about Brian Stelter being put at Guantanamo. So he comes up with absurd scenarios of who knows what he's talking about, and that's how he debunks. There's no conspiracy about the WF because look, I'm still alive. And the idiot watching is like, oh, well, if Brian Stelter's alive, it must all be a hoax. This is the way they want to treat it. They're just trying to marginalize and diminish. But it's fascinating because at this World Economic Summit this week, you have all the major players. Now, there's some talk. People like George Soros may not be there. There was some health concern about Klaus, but he apparently is going to be. He is fine. Interesting that the high-class call girl escort services in Davos have been hit to the capacity, as well as the private jet airstrips there. And there's a lot of journalists on the ground who can attend. Remember, if you're a journalist, you can't get into this event unless you pay something like last year's with $35,000, and you have to be personally approved by the World Economic Forum. That guarantees there'll be not a single ounce of any critical media of this entire event this week.
For some reason, I doubt my pass would have been approved had I applied for one, Mark. All right, Mark, let me ask you. Stakeholder. We hear that a lot, stakeholder. Can you expand on that a little bit? Because they love to say it. And again, it's another one of those words that sounds so innocent, stakeholder. What do they mean?
Well, Klaus Schwab invented, when he started the 1971 World Economic Forum, he invented the concept of, or co-invented, the stakeholder capitalism. And what that means is, as stakeholders in a company, it doesn't really matter whether that company makes profit, makes loss, returns money to investors. What matters is whether any entity, company is doing good for the community and the nation. So what this has evolved into, stakeholder capitalism, it's really the end of capitalism. It's no longer about profit loss. It's about how your company adheres to essentially woke values. Black Lives Matter, critical race theory, transgender ideology, LGBTQ, climate, energy, environment, social governance. That is what they mean by stakeholders. In other words, every citizen on the planet who they now represent, this woke, progressive World Economic Forum vision is now the stakeholders representing all these people around the world, and it's no longer about profit loss. It's about implementing their agenda. So a company is no longer evaluated on this, and that's why every corporate board now quakes at the sight of progressive climate activists or LGBTQ or critical race, because they are bowing to that whole agenda. Stakeholder capitalism is catching on globally, and it's going through the EU like wildfire right now, and they want to now convert essentially the internet to that, and that's what they're working on. Again, anything you do that's not woke, as they define it, you can be banned, and that includes whether it's your text, your Gmail, your WordPress, your email service, your cell phones. They are literally taking this idea of the stakeholder capitalism all the way to the end game here, which is human control.
One thing I did miss a lot was President Trump on the world stage. Man, was he outstanding on the world stage. And he actually did the World Economic Forum back in 2018. They didn't like it very much. Here he was.
Regulation is stealth taxation. The U.S., like many other countries, unelected bureaucrats, and we have, believe me, we have them all over the place. And they've imposed crushing and anti-business and anti-worker regulations on our citizens with no vote, no legislative debate, and no real accountability. In America, those days are over. As president of the United States, I will always protect the interests of our country, our companies, and our workers. We are lifting self-imposed restrictions on energy production to provide affordable power to our citizens and businesses and to promote energy security for our friends all around the world.
Wow. Gosh, that's outstanding. But Mark, our Republicans that we're currently sending this year, I don't think they're talking like that as they show up there.
No, in fact, I just got back from the Egypt UN summit. Exact same thing, opposite of what Trump. Republican delegation went. They didn't go to the UN summit to condemn the United Nations, the climate agenda, wokeism. They went there to basically have a seat at the table and talk about, hey, climate's a problem and we want solutions too. Me too. We'll have a Green New Deal light version. And some of them talked good sense on energy, but they went to this conference, unlike Donald Trump. He went to another one, I think the year or two later. I think it was 2020, January, where he actually talked about the climate agenda of the World Economic Forum, and he condemned it to the point where he compared the climate doom prophets to fortune tellers on the boardwalk. I mean, Donald Trump knew how to go into the belly of the enemy and slam it. Unfortunately, the Republicans delegation attending this year, they want a seat at the table. They want to be considered part of the elite. They want financing. They want media interviews. They want connections. They want to be invited to cocktail parties. That's all the things that the World Economic Forum and career advancement, that's ultimately what they're looking for. Remember, Klaus Schwab had bragged that he penetrates half the cabinets of the prime ministers and presidents of the world. In the case of Justin Trudeau, it's by more than half.
We penetrate the cabinets. I remember that. Mark, thank you so much, brother. I appreciate it.